They might talk about humour, music, film, books, football and box sets, exercise and maybe even food, trivia and sports, politics and health, sometimes well-being too. On the Life with Brian. On the Life with Brian.
If you just landed here, welcome. And if you arrived here via episode 3, welcome back. This is part 2 of Chocky's chat with renowned journalist and author Paddy Barclay. So without further ado, let's get to it. And we start with something about an old teammate of Brian's at Manchester United. You got another very brief mention in the news this week, Brian. I don't know if you saw it.
Yeah, I seen it. I saw it, yeah.
Yeah, well, what it was Gary Neville took to Instagram to call out what he saw as xenophobic and negative undertones in the reaction to Maheta Malango's appointment as the next PFA chief executive as the successor to Gordon Taylor. Now, your part in all of this actually just comes as a bit of an aside. You're not the main topic like you were in the Noel and Liam Gallagher story. Gary Neville explains that it was when you left United that you suggested that he take over from you as the club's PFA union rep. Now, considering he was only 22 at the time, and you know all the big names and big characters in that dressing room, you must have obviously spotted something in Gary as a person that made you think he was strong enough and mature enough to take such a responsibility. So, you know, what was it about Gary Neville that you thought could slip into your shoes so easily?
Well, the first thing about it is that you have to disregard age when it comes to sport and professional sport and football. And certainly from my thing is that, and it is I think it's a quote attributed to Paddy Barclay. You know, you're either good enough or you're not. I'm not interested what age you are. And Gary being 22 for me was actually quite advanced when it comes to football, you know. So you kind of enter into he came in as the same kind of thing as I did. You came into professional sport, adult professional sport, at 16 years of age. But Gary had always been. Gary's main attribute is his determination.
Yeah,
he's determined to become a football player, and everything that he's been done has been down to his determination, his desire to be the best he can possibly be at whatever it is he does. And I think that's a great thing to have, and it takes you an awful lot way further than this supposed idea that I don't believe in talent. I think it's hard work and dedication and learning. Gary had already shown right the way through from his 16 years of age that he was determined, and he had the right attributes in order for me to be able to stand up and say what he thought was the right thing with regards to footballers' rights. And I respect, it didn't matter who else was still there in the dressing room. He was, for me, strong enough to be able to turn around and say, no, this is what I think. This is what I think is the best for the game. Not necessarily what's best for himself, but what was best for the game. And I think that's been proven to be something that I was correct about. He's continued that, and that's what I would say with Gary all the way through. Yeah, whatever it is, he gets involved and he's determined to be successful at it. And he's always prepared to give you an opinion. It's not always going to be right. It's not always going to be agreeable to everyone. But he'll give you that. And it's, I think, in the situation with regards to the article, I think that's very pertinent to say that. The things that he said, I think, were very relevant. You get to a situation now where we've got an organisation who have been wonderful for the benefit of football players, both collectively and individually. It's now going to change with regards to governance. Gary was part of that process of review and being part of the process of appointing someone to take over the position in the coming weeks and months. And what he was basically saying about how he was disappointed in with regards to the topics he spoke about, and I can understand exactly why he was saying that. He felt that there was a need to say it. He has a platform, which again is great that he's using the platform for those reasons rather for anything to do with any kind of benefit.
He's a very impressive man, Gary. I thought, I don't know him, but I've just got a lot of respect for him. Can I just say a couple of things about him? One, I thought he made a bad call quite early, possibly the mistakes of youth in encouraging on the England front, in encouraging a strike when Ferdinand was done for missing a drug test. He could have got England thrown out of an international tournament there if people had followed that line. But that is, again, as Brian's alluded to it, that's the mistake of just wanting to show solidarity, to be one of the team, to lead the team. But much more typical of him, I think, is, I remember 2000, I think it was 2008, when United played the Champions League final in Moscow against Chelsea. It was a pissing down night. The game didn't finish after extra time until about 1 a.m. And everybody just wanted to get home, back to the hotel and celebrate or commiserate. And as you probably remember, it went to penalties. And John Terry, the game was largely decided by the pitch, by the way. The pitch was man of the match by a mile. It was a good game, but the pitch was man of the match by a mile. It had given Chelsea a goal when Frank Lampard shot and Van der Sar slipped on his arse. And of course, it in the end, it was the deciding goal because Terry slipped again on this wet artificial pitch and miskicked, and the ball hit the outside the post, went behind. United were champions of Europe. Gary Neville came out in a grey suit out of the dugout. He'd missed the game for some reason. I don't know who played right back, but
Wes Brown,
of course. He crossed for the goal, the first goal. But Gary Neville rushes onto the pitch along with everybody else, and you're thinking he's going to hug Ronaldo or whoever it is. He goes straight through the United players, and John Terry's sitting on the pitch with his head in his hands, and he puts his arm around John Terry. And only when he attempted to console them and one or two other that he knew, did he go and join the celebrations with the United lot. And by the time he came back, he was like he'd entered a wet T-shirt competition because it was still pissing down and his suit was sort of clinging to him. And he was soaked and ruined. And I thought, that's a man. And there have been other instances of similar things. Jose Mourinho told the story of after United had been beaten by a last-minute goal at Old Trafford by Porto, and Jose Mourinho was the manager of Porto, that as soon as the game was over, the door to the dressing room bursts open and they're all jumping up and down, and there is Ferguson and Gary Neville to congratulate them. And it had been a real sickener for United because they'd been ahead. They'd had a goal chalked off wrongly for offside against Scholes. I mean, it was 3 yards onside. And then in the last minute, Tim Howard had parried a shot, and a lad called Costinha had rolled it in. And it was sickening defeat for United. And yet, the two people that went straight into the dressing room to congratulate Porto were, and Mourinho, his eyes glistened. He said, but not only was Alex there, he said Gary Neville was there, and he went around shaking hands with all of our players. A real sportsman, a proper sportsman. And so, yeah, I'll vote for McClare as the the Kingmaker Supreme. He made the right.
Did he have any other contenders in that dressing room at the time, Brian? Obviously back then you had a few big characters in the dressing room. I mean, I assume it wasn't just Gary Neville that would have been on your radar in terms of the union rep to take your position.
No, but what I was thinking about was that it was clear to me that because I'd played with these lads in the reserves over before they made a breakthrough, and it seemed kind of clear to me that these were going to be there for a while. So the consistency thing for me was important. And indeed, Gary went on to, as I did, had been part of the SFA management committee, and then he gone on to be influential. The PFA management committee, and then has gone on to still be influential in it with regards to this review that's happened and the recent appointment, and still being passionate about players and players' rights in the game. And I thought that Gary already had shown that the likelihood is if he can continue to play the way he was consistent player he was for Manchester United, and I think England by then he was going to be there for a long time. And I think that's one of the things that I recognised that could be useful to the PFA to have someone like that who had the thinking of Gary Neville at Manchester United, Gary Neville in the Premier League, but who was going to be able to be sympathetic, empathetic, and realistic about what was going on in football globally, and what was going on in football with regards to everything else that was on. And Gary had also had the benefit and, I suppose, an influence that his mum and dad had worked at Bury and worked there for a long, long time. And indeed, Gary and Phil were very, very enthusiastic and fans of Bury Football Club. Yeah. So that was another part of it that not that I was just saying that anyone else was there, but he had so many things going for him that I said, and he'd already had, unlike the other ones, unlike any of the other ones, including his brother Phil or Ryan or David, Nicky or Paul, was that Gary had already had some kind of knockbacks in his time as a player. He had scraped through the selection process at 16, and then Gary was always the last one up to a certain point to be told that he was going to be getting the next contract. So he had come across this idea that already that he was really holding on with his fingernails to his career at Manchester United, and I think that was one of the other things that gave him that foresight and insight, maybe, to say, well, I'm here. I'm just here, and that it could easily happen to me where I'm seeking my employment elsewhere in football, elsewhere at a different club in football. So for me, he was the perfect. I didn't know he was going to be the perfect one. I certainly at that particular time, I thought he was the one that could take it and do what was needed to be done at that time. And I think it would have. I think it helped. I think that would. Been involved in that would have helped him, but he was also, as I said, he was brave. I mean, the thing is, another part of it is for me as well that he had the courage to do it, and the courage to be able to stand up and say to people, either both in the dressing room at the time, and also probably standing up in an England dressing room and elsewhere. Alex Ferguson always spoke about courage in football, courage in players, and it wasn't his idea of courage was in a simple way. When you understand what he was saying, he felt that the best players ever to play football were courageous, and the courage that he felt wasn't standing up ready to have a battle with people. The courage that he was looking for was to demand the ball, not just look for the ball, demand the ball, irrespective of what situation you were in. So Paddy just mentioned Dennis Law there, and you have Bobby Charlton with another one. Great players don't hide. Great players want the ball. It doesn't matter who's marking them. It doesn't matter who they're playing against. They want the ball.
Yeah. Well,
if you're looking in the modern game now,
yeah.
for me, the perfect example of it, and this has been up and down, little bits of up and downs recently, is that Lionel Messi always wants the ball because he thinks that he can do something and make a difference with it.
Yeah, there are one or two who seem to spend their life making phony runs, but we were the opposite. But to reinforce what Brian says about courage, the best player I've ever seen in the flesh, by a not by a long way, but by quite even better than Messi, was Diego Maradona. And if you were to say who's the bravest player you've ever seen, I would say Diego Maradona. The correlation is exactly as Brian says. The people say success is governed by money in football, but it's actually governed by hard work and courage. And what money buys you is hard work and courage. So I completely agree with that. And it's the courage to want the ball. Bobby Charlton wanted the ball for a different reason than, say, George Best would want it. But they would both want the ball. They would want to influence the game. They would. I always think the perfect example of Maradona was the World Cup final of 1986. Germany sacrificed their best player, Lothar Matthäus, to man marking. That's how important he was, Maradona. So he probably only touched the ball 4 times. First time was to get fouled for the first Argentine goal. Can't remember what part he played in the second Argentine goal, and he provided the pass for the third. So he influenced the game, and he was always there, even though Germany's best player had been deputed to mark him. Maradona spent his entire career being assaulted in a cowardly way, wanting the ball in the tightest position when you know that somebody's going to try and break your leg, as was the case in Maradona's time, thank God. Not quite the same but if you look, I watched selected highlights from the 1968 European Cup final, and I didn't know that George Best could have been crippled.
What about the tackle on Paddy Crenant? Was it Eusebio on Paddy Crenant?
That was a brave one then.
Eusebio, he did. How Paddy got up after that?
Because Paddy normally used to banjo them if anybody.
Well, Eusebio got his retaliation in first.
Oh dear! Oh well, that was so. Eusebio was a very brave man then, and he'd of course taken an awful lot from Nobby Stiles. And we talk about these people as if they were characters, and of course they were. I mean, Nobby Stiles was a very good football player. Nobody should be in any doubt about that. He could play. But there were a lot of people around, even good ones, who were filthy in those days. I don't have any nostalgia for that. I thank God that we have Lionel Messi. And we wouldn't have Lionel Messi, in my opinion, if it wasn't for the leadership of the 2 most reviled men in football, Sepp Blatter, Michel Platini. Because in the 1990s, it was on their watch that the refereeing became more duty of care and less let's get through the game sort of thing. I think the game's in that sense has improved a lot. Did you find that the refereeing became more? In other words, you didn't get as many bad fouls against you as time went on.
No, I think it changed when I stopped playing.
It was
I
up.
think
Yeah, it was up. But
there was probably a few little tweaks, but I think there was most of the time when you would get the ball when I was playing as a forward, for example, and you get the ball played to you early on in the game. I can think of Highbury as a particularly fine example. That the ball would get played to you just inside, and you'd take a touch, and the next minute you were lying on your ass, you know.
That would be Adams and Bold and people like that. Because they always reckoned that if you scraped their Achilles or did give them a bang on the ankle in the first minute, the referee wouldn't send you off. And they were...
No, they didn't. No, there wasn't. There was that was part of the. It was just part of the way it was.
A free shot, yeah.
Yeah, you got a free shot. So I think that and I agree. I think it's maybe it's gone a wee bit too far that way.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
I get frustrated by the theatrics now.
Yeah, I know. I do know what you mean. This business of, I think Beckham started this business of running and then you stop and the guy stumbles into you and then you dive. And he hasn't really meant to foul you, but you get the free kick. And if the people, they're buying free kick. I'm not saying they should have to be bleeding before they get a free kick, but they shouldn't be able to buy them quite as easily, should they?
No, there's no. Well, that is it's not going to go back to
Although
that.
You were famously, I was going to say, Brian, you were famously chastised by Alex Ferguson for not buying a penalty against City in '92.
Yeah.
So I suppose it wasn't necessarily a new thing.
Yeah. Well, it depends. It depends on the situation. It depends what it wants, and it's all about a lot of the things about winning, isn't it?
Yeah.
I thought of that situation, and I did get a shot on target. I didn't score. And there was not disagreement. I was told unequivocally that I should have went down, but it's just not. It wasn't me. Sorry, it wasn't me. You know, I didn't agree with that sort of thing. If I got savaged or something like that, and I had no opportunity, but mine was all. And you know, I like to see that. I kind of admire it when I see players now who are attempt to stay on their feet. Now they're given potentially a better chance of a review now because of the technology that's involved. But I had this far too much of a Corinthian idea about the way it should be. You know that you don't try to seek. I just didn't feel comfortable with throwing this. I couldn't anyway. I wasn't very good at it because I think you have to practice this sort of thing. So I always thought that even if I'd gone down, it would be like so embarrassing that they would just go. I'd get booked for diving now. I'd dive or like whatever it was. It would just be like. So I always felt that, and I don't know. Maybe as I'm saying, I just like to play, and I believed, and I did. I got to the ball, had a shot, was on target, but we didn't score.
Yeah. Life with Brian.
Brian, this is just maybe slightly an out of the blue sort of over direct question. But would you say that the Alex Ferguson that you knew, the man you knew as a manager, was a good man?
Was a good man?
Yes.
Aye.
Because obviously he's a good manager. No dispute.
Oh no, yeah.
You think he's a good man?
Yeah. Yeah, very. I mean, the I think when you're looking at what he believed in, or what he believed in was like trust, loyalty, and respect. And I think that all of us get that from your upbringing, your family, and from your surroundings, and that makes you the person that you are. I have always said about him that I felt that he was hard but fair. You knew exactly, and when it was very, very difficult in 89, 90, when we were having a real torrid time, that he was getting criticised by everyone, probably rightly because of the form of the team and the way things were going. We were getting criticised by him, criticised in the media, obviously after the game, whether it's in the evening paper or the Sunday paper, maybe the Monday, and that was it. The rest of the team was getting pilloried all the time. And we knew exactly how he felt and what he thought of us, but he never at any time threw us on the bonfire. He protected us from all of that. And I've always admired that kind of thing. As I say, we got plenty of roastings and left, it was very clear and very direct, and it was sometimes difficult to comprehend and sometimes difficult to assimilate. But he would recognise what he'd done because he felt it was the right thing to do it at the time.
Most people.
Sorry, Paddy, on you go.
Sorry, I beg your pardon. I was just going to say that most people, if asked to describe you, the phrase independent-minded would probably be in most people's top four descriptions of Brian McClair. So, in all the time that you were with Ferguson, in other words, when you were a professional footballer, did you become a soldier and orders, or did you ever?
Oh well, no. There was, the professional soldier part was playing the game. Yeah, I did as I was told, roughly, when I was playing the game. Yeah. The rest of the time, I think I got away with so many things, really. So like many. Oh well. I used to kick the ball at him when he wasn't looking. You know, I would just. I think it was part of the way that I am is this kind of idea that I've got this thing that I've always wanted to be entertained, or either by myself or by other people every day. Wanted to have kind of joy or a laugh every day, you know that I loads of times I pushed that I don't know. Well, I can only put it down to the fact that I was putting myself under the pressure, but I was performing well enough in the games to get away with it. Because I got away with loads and loads of things.
So did Cantona.
Well, Eric was a different thing, though. Eric didn't do the things that he used. Eric was only in the sense of Eric was Eric, you know. And you recognise there that what Eric was doing was that all the best teams in the world, and they'll continue to be that. And you mentioned one again there about your player that you said is the best you've seen. Is there game changers? So you talk about game changers. When Romario was playing for Barcelona, being coached by Cruyff, Romario used to go out clubbing on a Thursday or a Friday and club all night, dancing and things like that. And he'd come in and train on the Saturday morning, play the game on Sunday and score 3 or 4 goals. And Cruyff was challenged about Romario's lifestyle. And Cruyff said, I'm not interested in what he does. And he says, I know he's out. I know what he's doing. I know he's out dancing. He says, he doesn't drink. He doesn't smoke. I says, and if he comes down here and plays a game and like he has the game today and scores 3 or 4 goals, why should I try to change that? And it's a similar kind of thing of recognising what your important players need. And that's what happened with players like Eric, that they made the difference enough to be able to get away with certain things, not necessarily get away with things, but get away with it in a different way. And that's what happens with you go through a whole raft of things. I'm sure that when you're doing your research on the managers, you've written about Alex Ferguson, you've written about Mourinho, you've written about Herbert Chapman.
Yeah.
And apart from getting an underground station named after Arsenal, what has Herbert Chapman ever done for football? but we'll come back to that kind of thing. Yeah. And is just that when Don Shula's the coach of the Miami Dolphins, the very successful Miami Dolphins team, and Dan Marino's his star player. And there's 88 members of that team. So there's 88 players in that when they're having a team talk in a big theatre, there's 88 bodies in there. And one of the linebackers or running backs or one of the defensive tackles or whatever in American football fell asleep during one of Shula's team talk, and he stopped the team talk and he shouted the guy out and told him to go to the locker room, get his gear, and fuck off. Go and see the director of the go and see and get your contract paid or whatever. Told him to fuck off, right?
Yeah.
And Don Shula was using this as an example of how you treat players differently. You don't necessarily set out to do this, but when you realise that sometimes you just have to do different things with different people. So that lad got fired, right, for falling asleep or nodding off in his team talk.
Yeah.
When Dan Marino's sitting at the front of he's in the front of the theatre and he's doing his team talk and he notices that Dan's nodding off. He continues saying exactly what he's saying. He walks over, he just taps Dan on the shoulder and says, "Just stay with us, Dan, for a couple of minutes."
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, they do. And when you understand that that's the case and you accept that's the case, whether you think it's fair or not. Yeah, at times you would go, several players will, and several players would tell lots of different stories about it was all right for Eric. Eric never got a hairdryer.
Yeah.
You know, Robbo, from what I can remember, got a wee bit of one once.
Yeah.
But
was that when he was playing against Gascoigne?
Aye.
Yeah. But
that was the only time.
Yeah. But Robbo.
Well, he wasn't playing against Gascoigne. Gascoigne just gave us a doing.
Yeah.
It's all right with Brian.
Mark, did you have anything you wanted to say about Fergie, or I think you wanted to talk from your point of view, Paddy, about getting a bollocking?
Yeah, of course, yes, but not very many, because I went back to sort of Aberdeen. I think obviously I knew his career very well. Ferguson was a mystery when he came to Manchester. I used to spend all my time getting the piss taken out of me by the other journalists because his team was just getting worse. And I said, "No, trust me, this bloke is top class. He will be fantastic." And they said, "Well, what do you mean?" I said, "Well, look at what he did with Aberdeen." They said, "Aberdeen, where's Aberdeen?" And so I did take quite a lot of that from my colleagues. But I generally wrote supportively for what it was worth in The Guardian. I'm not sure if The Guardian, was what all football people read for the decision may influence. I'm sure we weren't major influencers, but I'd moved to, I think it was Independent. Manchester United were playing. I don't know if it was Brian who would have been playing. Were you there that time when they played there were two FA Cup semi-finals played on the same day? They were both great games. United, yeah, you must have been there because United qualified, beat Oldham.
Yeah.
After maybe a replay at Main Road or something. I can't remember what it was. Or maybe
a replay at Main Road, yeah.
Yeah. Right. And then I think in the corresponding semi-final, Palace beat Liverpool 4-3 with 4 headers probably. And anyway, the main road where the semi-final was played, it was always one of my favourite grounds as a journalist, because there was a sort of well in just behind the main entrance to the ground. And there was a well where just sort of a reception area where all the tea was served at half time. And everybody who was there, the scouts, other managers, dignitaries, and all that would be there, and you all mingled and you felt at home rather than cordoned off, as increasingly became the case with the media. Sanitized away, like as if you were a lavatory product. But at Main Road, it was great because you could mingle, you could see friends in the game and all that. But it was also the way from the dressing rooms to the manager's office, and Ferguson had obviously been given one of the manager's offices. And at half-time, he came through and he passed me, and I smiled, as naturally I would have normally smiled at him, because I would always had a good relationship with him, such as it was. And I hope people don't mind the language, but I was sure he'd said to me, "You fucking cunt," and had moved on. Now,
a good day then.
Where I come from in Scotland, that's not necessarily a bad thing. I was surprised at the word, but I mean,
if you listen to, you'll just stop me there, Paddy. Right, you're talking music, right? There's a musician from Castlemilk called Jerry Cinnamon.
Yeah.
And when in one of his songs, he says that is not always seen as a put down.
No, not at all. I mean, it's almost a term of endearment. I mean, in England, you might say mate or squire, or in England, you might call your best mate a fucking cunt, because not because he necessarily is, but just the language, it's just a noise. Anyway, so I'm looking past, thinking he's gonna wink, but oh no, he's Pugh's face. Brian will know that we remember this. Pugh's face and that rather nice, nasty vulpine. That's the word for what a wolf looks like, isn't it? Vulpine.
Yeah.
That vulpine look, the nasty, mean eyes. You've seen it, Brian, haven't you? You've seen fucking. And he's looking at me like that, and there's almost a smile, a sort of sadistic smile, almost, not quite. And he walks on. So at the end of the game, he repeats it. So I'm shocked. I'm still sort of laughing, thinking, what can I have possibly done? On the Monday, I rang his office at had all his numbers. I had the number of his house in, where is it, Wilmslow, somewhere like that.
Don't repeat the number just in case it's the same number.
Anyway.
There's a possibility it might be the same number.
Exactly. And it says, I pick up the phone and I said, "Hello, Alex, it's Paddy Barclay." And down goes the phone. So I tried again and he's left the phone off the hook. I try again and he says, "Fuck off." So I'm beginning to realise now that there is a wee bit of a problem here. And I was thinking, what could I possibly have done? I hadn't said anything. And this went on for years. And people said, "Have you ever had a fight with Alex Ferguson?" I said, "Yeah, well, there was, he called me cunt once, and I still to this day don't know." And then one day, I think it came through the post without any receipt of who it was from. But there was this cutting from the paper I was on at the time, which was at the Independent, and somebody had highlighted a word, and I had written, "It looks as if things are running out of Alex Ferguson's control at Manchester United." And that word, control, and Brian will back me up on this, control is fundamental to his methodology, to his principles of management. And he claims that he got it from Matt Busby, and that's true, because he was controlling in a probably slightly different way. And he believes, and who can gainsay him? If you look at his medals, who can say that he's not absolutely right? But control was fundamental. And anyone, fucking cunt wasn't a swear word, but control was if it was used in the wrong way. And I am utterly convinced that whoever sent me that cutting had got it. That is what had made Ferguson say, that guy, he used to be on the inside of the tent pissing out. He's now on the outside of the tent.
Did he ever make good with you? Did you ever, patch things up?
No. Yeah, we did actually, because what was the year when Gordon Strachan got promoted with Leeds, Brian? Can you remember the exact year? It was around that time, wasn't it? In the early 90s. Right, 89, 90. And so it must have been around that time. Leeds were about to get promoted with Strachan and McAllister and Speed and Batty in the midfield, Lee Chapman up front, Sterland and all that. And I thought, well, if this team's coming up to the Premier League, I lived on the Leeds side of Manchester in Saddleworth, and I thought, if this team's going to come up in the Premier League, I'd love to go and see them on a midweek game and really get a chance to look at them, see what they're about. And so I went to this game at the end of the season, and obviously Ferguson had the same idea, because he was there with Archie, Knox, and Kiddo, Brian Kidd, and they were all there. And again, at Elland Road, when you go in, there's you're sort of mixing in a sort of tea area, and I go in, and I'm still really annoyed at Ferguson for putting the phone down on me when I didn't deserve it. If I had written Ferguson is highly overrated, he was a shite manager of Aberdeen, and he's not up to the job at Man United, then of course he would have been entitled to do anything. But I just didn't think it was fair when I'd done nothing but defend him in private with other journalists and in print. So I went in there and I saw him with Archie and thing, and I'm not a brave man. I'm a coward. I'm a very cowardly person. So don't think I'm trying to pretend act big here, because I'm not. But I just lost I do have a temper, and I lost my temper. I saw him, and completely, I was so much steam coming out of my eyes, I think, that I didn't really notice Archie and Brian Kidd. And I just went up to him and I said, at least tell me what I've fucking well done wrong. Do not, probably, I don't think I pointed at him. I don't think I was that brave, but I was saying, I got fucking stick for defending you, and you're fucking putting the phone down on me, blah, blah, blah. And I look back and I'm thinking, oh, what have I done? He's going to kill me here. And I see Archie, who could kill someone just by looking at them, and Kiddo, who he acts all nice, but you wouldn't. So I thought, what have I done? And I'll never forget. Honestly, there was the best moment of my 40 years career. I looked, and Ferguson was just sort of looking at me with contempt. And Archie and Kiddo were going like this, thinking, nobody does that. And this is this journalist trying it. So I just thought, right, I don't want to push my luck, and walked upstairs. Anyway, sorry, this story's going on forever. But the next season, I walked off thinking, I've really asked for it. I've really gone too far. You shouldn't be rude to someone in public, even if they've been rude, even if they've started it in front of their, I wish I hadn't done that. And once the adrenaline wears off, you're not so brave after all. And then, as chance would have it, the English clubs got back into Europe, and United were drawn away to a Hungarian club. I think it was Videoton or
Peski Munke.
Peci Munkas, exactly. But we were based, the team and the press were based in Budapest, Brian, I think. And we were going to go out to Munkas, or maybe maybe the game was played in Budapest, whatever. We were staying in a nice hotel.
No, the game was played the plane was played there. It wasn't played in Budapest. It was played in Munkas.
Wasn't it? But, well, anyway, maybe we got into the hotel in Munkas and it was a smart.
Yeah.
And anyway, not only, and I'm praying to my desk, I'm saying, can you send me to another match? Not to the United one, because we're staying in the same hotel as Ferguson, and he's going to kill me. And but of course, there was nobody else bagged the other game. And they said, "Oh, good news! You're going to Budapest with Man United." And I went, "Oh, good! That's great!" And anyway, so I get to this thing, and we're in the bar, and I'm thinking, "Oh, I hope he doesn't come in." I'm looking at the door and knocking back a few beers, and somebody says, "Oh, Fergie's got on the way. He's decided to have a drink with us." And I'm thinking, oh no, this is just getting worse and worse. I don't even have time to make an excuse and go up to my room. So he comes in and he sees Steve Curry or whoever it was and says, "Oh, Steve, have a drink." He's buying everybody a drink. And I'm thinking, oh, when he gets to me, what's he going to do? And he pats me on the back and he says, "Hello, Paddy, what are you having?" I thought, Jesus, that guy will do for me. He probably couldn't even remember, but I just thought,
oh no, he can remember. Don't worry about that. He can remember. I'll tell you the story in a minute, and he can remember.
All right, okay. Well, I've finally got to the end of my anecdote, but it was okay. But then we finally did fall out terminally. When he did a very naughty thing, but I don't want to spoil it because he's a mate of Brian's and this is Brian's show, and I don't want to.
No, it's nothing to do.
Listen, if I ever get back on, I'll tell you the not so nice story, but it's not for this time. Brian, what were you going to say?
I'm going to say what you were just talking about. You were saying about the memory.
Yeah,
is that I'm sitting there as a coach at the dinner in lunchtime at Carrington. I don't know, 2006, 2007. And he's got the exact same. Something's upset him about whatever game had happened, whatever. And he sits down or he sit down and whatever he's doing, and somebody mentions something that's got him annoyed, and he decides and I quite like the idea of it, of venting your spleen at that moment rather than take it home with you. Which has always been used to it as a player anyway. And at lunchtime that day, I got a bollocking for the League Cup game against Sheffield Wednesday, that we lost 1-0, because it was my fault that John Sheridan scored the goal.
Was it?
And I couldn't argue with him because he was absolutely... You're talking of 15, 16 years later, I'm getting another... I got one at the time, I'm getting another one. So we talk, and I used to say to people, I says, look, you have to be very careful about what you do and what you say. I says, because he doesn't forget anything. He has got an incredible memory and he still does now, even after he's
the thing. Well, he said one time I had a quiz question that always beat everybody, certainly in England and actually even in Scotland, because the quiz question was, it's changed now, but this was maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago. The question was, which two British cities have had two separate teams in the last four of the Champions League? Well, it was called the European Cup then, but the Champions League. Or European Cup. In other words, the last four of Europe's top Premier, only two British cities have had two separate teams in the semi-final. Well, of course, the question's out of date now because Manchester, which wasn't the right answer at the time, is now.
Yeah, Dundee and Glasgow.
This is the answer. And nobody got it. They were all saying London. I said, well, when did Arsenal get? Because at that time, Arsenal hadn't been to a final. And when did, as Tottenham had been to a semi, Arsenal hadn't been to a semi. And they said, well, Birmingham? I said, oh, yeah. that great Birmingham City side that got to the semi-final. You know, it was great. You had a lot of fun with it because they're all going, yeah, must be. And eventually some of these English people would get Glasgow, but none of them would get the other. And I was on the plane to a Man United away game doing this, and they said, and nobody could get it. And they said, I'm gonna see if Fergie knows. Somebody went up and he said, Glasgow and Dundee. And they came back and told me. So he's just
brilliant.
Can I just tell you a story that a boy who used to play for Falkirk told me? Do any of you boys know your horse racing?
You wouldn't know so by how I got on at Cheltenham last week. No.
What about you, Brian?
Matthew owns a horse. Matthew owns a horse.
It's been retired now, Brian.
Well,
it cost me 1,200 quid.
Yeah, I know about the horse.
Fergie was playing for. I don't know anything about horses, so I'll probably get the story wrong. But Fergie was playing for Falkirk. They had a team that played in a game called Quizball, which was football.
Oh yeah, Celtic won that in 1967.
Yeah, and
as well as everything else.
In this year when they were doing it, Fergie was in the Falkirk team along with this guy that I spoke to called Bobby Ford and Andy Roxburgh, who was school teacher.
Bobby Ford, did he go and play for Hearts?
No, it was a different Ford. It was a different
Donald Ford.
He ended up playing for Dundee. Bobby Ford. He was a tough.
I know some
number 4, and he was a good player, but a lovely guy. And he told me this story. And the Falkirk team was those three: Andy Roxburgh because he was a school teacher and therefore clever, and Ferguson because he was clever, and I don't know how Bobby Ford got in, and Chick Murray was their star guest. I don't know whether he was a Falkirk fan, but he was their star guest. The Everton, they were playing Everton. It was the semi-final. They were just one game away from the final. So Ferguson, as you imagine, is desperate to win. And Everton has Joe Royle, who's very clever. Catrick, I think, was in it. And Ed Stewpot Stewart was their star. So the late Ed Stewpot Stewart. And so they get there. And it's a real tight game, brilliant game. And it goes to the final question. And the question was an individual one. It goes to Andy Roxburgh, who has got no interest in horses, no interest in the horse racing at all. And the final question was, and if Andy gets this right, Falkirk are in the final. So Fergie, as you can imagine, he's frothing. And anyway, the question master says, Andy Roxburgh, who rode the winner of this year's Grand National? Now, I think it was Lester Piggott, a flat jockey.
Yeah.
Yes.
Flat, yeah.
Anyway, Andy knows nothing about it. And Ferguson's desperate to, and the question master saying, no conferring, no, shut up. And Ferguson's trying to transfer the answer into. And Andy panicking, and he's only heard of one horse jockey. So he says, Lester Piggott. Wrong. Everton win. Everton going to the final. Anyway, Ferguson, Andy said, I honestly thought he was going to tear my head off. I really thought he was going to kill me. And anyway, the story got out because when Falkirk ran out against Dunfermline on the Saturday, the crowd started chanting Lester Piggott at Andy.
McClare's mailbag. McClare's mailbag. McClare's mailbag.
It's mailbag time again, Matthew. What have you got for Brian this time?
Okay, I've delved into the mailbag, and we've got one, funny enough, from Ray Mead, and he wants you, Brian, to tell the story about the time you met a snooker legend and his brother in Glasgow in 2018. So, what's that all about?
All right. Was this about? I think this is just pertaining to how I ruined somebody's career.
Well, it could be. You tell us.
In that I was at a gig in Glasgow, Ocean Colour Scene, and I'd been to the toilet, and as I came back from the toilet, walking through I was in the standing area. I saw John Higgins. Never met John Higgins before, but I kind of looked at him, and he kind of looked at me in the kind of same kind of way of, oh. Me, I'm like, that looks like John Higgins, and I think he went, oh, that looks like
George Michael,
an old Brian McClare. Potentially, aye. So I don't like to do the same, because I know exactly what it's like. I don't normally go over, but I just thought, because he'd kind of nodded, I thought I'll just go over and say hello. And I went over and said hello to John, and we're just chatting away. And he was playing in a tournament the next day, and he said to me, look, he was a bit apprehensive, or a wee bit whatever. He goes, my brother's here, I go, okay, that's fine. No, listen, you've never met my brother. I says, no, I've never met you before. Don't think I've met your brother. No, well, I have to apologise now. What's he going about, So we're just chatting away, and his brother had been at the bar and had come back with a tray of drinks for him and this other lad, and he saw me talking to John, and he's talking to the person, the friend that I was with, and he's turning around and saying, look at that, see that, I hate that people come over and they start giving it, I've always loved you and you think you're great and all this kind of thing. I said, I don't like all that sycophancy and all that stuff. It's a piece of nonsense and all that. And my friend turned around and said, that's Brian McClare that John's talking to. And he virtually went like that, whoosh, swiped my mate out the way, and came straight over and poof, straight into the conversation. How you doing? That's good. You're Celtic and that. Don't worry about him. He's rubbish. He's been 4 times world champion. He's get his brother out of the way. And he starts chatting away. He goes, and then talking about, he says, I was a better player than him. I used to beat him all the time and all this. I says, and the problem, what happened? You were one of the reasons why my career got ruined. I'm like, not much of a... I said, well, what happened? I'm thinking that it's like he's devastated because he was a Celtic supporter when he was really young, and I've left Celtic to go to Manchester United. But it wasn't. He decided that he started following Celtic when I started playing for Celtic, signed for Celtic from Motherwell, and that's when he started getting into football, and he decided that going with his mates to the Celtic games was much more enjoyable than practicing to play for snooker. So I was responsible, and I am responsible for Jason not being 4 or 5 times world champion, but John sneaking in through the back door, So.
I hope John bought you a couple of pints for that. It sounds like you did him a huge favour.
I think he was just... John was just wondering how this conversation was going to go, and with regards to how it could go, that kind of thing. And I think he was quite pleased that it had gone
tolerably well
from his view, Yeah, and the thing for me was that I had this kind of thing, and I said to him, "Well, you used to beat your brother." Yeah, the last time I played him, I beat him 4-0 in some juvenile competition, and I was after I was reflecting on it and thinking that what happened was that because of their height at that particular time, that Jason could see over the table, and that John couldn't, and John had to stand in some kind of stool to actually see the balls and have a chance to pot them. And every time he was going up to try and line up the cue ball with any particular colour, that Jason would kick this stool away from him. Told you, what are you doing? I can't see, So yeah, that was, well, as we know, that these things are incredible things that can happen to you that was related to something you did, and it's something that was wonderful, and a wonderful occasion to have someone being quite pleased, really, that I'd ruined their snooker career,
Well, how do you follow
another thing to be written down there?
Yeah. For the book,
with George Michael and
John Higgins.
John Higgins, yeah. I've got to do that,
Well,
I have to try and think of a Martin Knopfler and story. Never met that. No. I have to try and do things like that, throw things in, Paddy. You'll just trump me all the time. You'll just be a trumper. You're a top trumper, won't you? You'll be throwing in Maradona, won't you?
The difference is...
yeah, when I was outside having a aperitif with Minotti, that was quite nice. We're stuck in a lift,
The thing is, two things help me. One, my Walter Mitty personality, and two, the fact that most of the people I meet are more famous than me, which is an advantage you don't have, Brian, because most.
No, it is an advantage because everybody I meet is more famous than me.
Not. Although I must admit, can I tell you? Even Brian doesn't know this story, but very very briefly. I went to an Association of Manchester United former players dinner, and they are the best. It's the most wonderful thing. It is great, and it's dying. It will die out because the players at Manchester United haven't got the same feeling as the old ones. And blah, blah, blah. And sitting next to me is a guy. He seems nice enough. I don't recognise him. He's a guy with a beard, got a big beard, and I don't recognise him, but he seems a nice enough fella, rather quiet. And it's only after about 20 minutes that I realise it's Brian McClare. Because of the beard, you see. He's gone up to Scotland. He's done the SFA and this, that, and the other. And of course, you follow it through the press. His career. Oh, he's doing well. Interesting. But of course, what they don't, every time you read a thing, you don't get an image of this guy with his beard growing bigger and bigger and bigger. But eventually, I worked it out. And of course, I was so embarrassed because I didn't want to say to him, "Do you remember this, Brian?" I didn't want to say to him, "No, he doesn't. He doesn't even remember it," because I had hair the last time that he saw me. But
there's nothing better than people being embarrassed. I love that. It's great when people don't recognise you. I think it's wonderful.
I didn't discount that as a theory that you were quite enjoying spinning me out, like a fish. But I didn't want to say, "Oh, sorry, I didn't realise you were Brian. How are you, Brian?" Because it's stupid. He knows he's Brian. He doesn't need me to tell him. But anyway, I think I got away with it. I like to think I got away with it.
You could have said, "Brian, what's your name?"
It's still. I still can't get used to Roy Keane with a beard either. It's anyway. Not that Roy Keane's a friend of mine, but I like to think Brian is a friend of mine. But I don't think Roy Keane is. But there we go. Sorry, I've interrupted you. You're opening the post.
We're opening the post.
We're finishing the post. You got another one.
I've got one here.
Just a quick one before you go.
Okay, so
hold on, a quick one before you go into this. Are you sitting in your kitchen now, Paddy? Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, I've still got to cook. I'm doing corned beef hashes while the rugby's on.
Right. Okay. Right. Oh, there it's there. Right. Stop. Put the camera down a bit. Just put your camera down. Put it down. No, just move it back to the right. To the right. Just so we can see over your right shoulder. No.
That way.
No, I can't see it. Over your right shoulder. There you go. Kitchen roll.
Yeah. It's kitchen roll.
What's this thing of your fascination with kitchen roll?
What makes you think I've got a fascination with kitchen roll?
There's a photograph of you looking at.
What?
There's a photograph of you in an interview with another young journalist.
Yeah.
And there's 2 kitchen rolls in the background.
Well,
there's one over to the left of the cooker, and there's one in the fruit bowl.
I have to be honest.
And I was thought to myself, what are you doing with kitchen roll?
I have to be honest. That is brilliant. You should have been a detective, Brian, because in actual fact, I have 2 of everything. You know, like Noah had 2 animals, and I have 2 kitchen. Always have 2 packets of kitchen roll because I've got this dread. You know, this hoarding when the COVID started. I invented that years ago. I used to hoard when you didn't need to, and so I always have. You know, a lot of everything. I've got 2 tins of beans, 2 tins of kidney beans, 2 olive oil, you know, Tuscan olive oil, 2 of them, one unbroken, one being used, and then when I use that, I've just got this dread of being bloody hell, Brian. I mean, that's brilliant. You should spot that. I never even knew that.
And he said, you say that Fergie never forgets anything.
I thought this was a football chat, not a psychiatry program.
I'll just give you a little tip there. It's your Tuscan extra virgin oil.
It is, yes. But I also get...
Well, you should cook with normal olive oil because it gets too strong.
Yes.
Extra virgin oil.
I've heard that. I sometimes cook with sunflower oil as well, which is very...
You should do your cooking with just normal
olive oil. Right. Well, that's okay because...
so you don't have a treat and give yourself a nice taste to use extra virgin.
Yes. In fresh food like a salad, yeah. Sorry.
And in the picture, if you want to check back on the picture, which explains another thing, right?
Yeah.
In the picture, you're wearing a white T-shirt.
Yeah.
And there's a white T-shirt draped over the chair next to you.
Oh, no. I've just been ironing my hankies, actually. Oh, this is so embarrassing.
Life with Brian, life with Brian, life with Brian.
So, Joanne asks, she says, a topical on this, as we approach Easter, Cadbury's cream egg, how do you eat yours? Now, I'll go first. I'll say knife and fork. Brian?
You eat your cream egg with a knife and fork?
Well, yeah.
Do you not take the silver paper off first?
Well, of course. Obviously, I get someone else to do that for me. But but it's messy, isn't it? So, I mean, how do you... There must be a way of you... Especially with that hirsute facial hair of yours.
No, you have to... I treat a cream egg as you do a boiled egg. I've got a cream egg cup. Put the cream egg in the cup.
So you decant the cream and then eat the egg?
Knock the top off it, leave the top to the side, get an egg spoon, which is smaller than a teaspoon, and eat the inside out first and then eat the chocolate.
Wow. Well, you might as well put this to the floor while we're at it. Paddy, how do you eat your Cadbury's cream egg?
Well, unfortunately, due to my tendency to put on weight, I don't really get to eat sweets much as I love them all. In fact, this question is really torture because I'm starting to obsess about Cadbury. Cream eggs.
Yeah, others are available, yeah.
Other cream eggs are available, no doubt. But I would, coming from Dundee, I'd get own brand because they're cheaper. But I would, if I did have the luxury of eating one, I would take the wrapper off because that was a good hint from Brian about that. Take the wrapper off and then eat it in 2 bites. I was going to say starting with the left, but of course they're both the same. That's it.
So, Mark,
sorry.
you've got the casting vote, Mark.
Do you know what? I don't actually like them. They're too sweet for me. And And I've also got the horror story that one of my best friends, when he was about 5 or 6, he bit into it and started licking the fondant out of the middle, and he got so vigorous that he snapped the frenulum under his tongue, and then he started looking into it and noticed there was.
No.
And he started. Wait a minute. He started looking into it.
And there was blood in there. And then he said, "This isn't right." And that's another reason. That's another reason for not liking cream eggs. It's put me off ever since.
Yeah. And there goes the sales figures for Cadbury's cream eggs this Easter.
I mean, that's incredible, Mark. When we asked you the cream egg story, we thought at least it might be vegetarian. You know?
No, there's. Well, I think that's a great time to bring the podcast to an end. Now I've checked Fergie's watch and definitely owed.
Oh, natural,
indeed,
natural
yeah.
conclusion.
Chucky, Matthew, Paddy, and it's been absolutely brilliant. This, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks, Paddy.
Thank you very much. It's great to see you again, pal.
Paddy, do you want to give us a heads up where we can find the new podcast?
Oh, thank you very much. On Twitter, for example.
Twitter and wherever else it's to be found.
Well, honestly, it's this boy that Omar Garrick, his name is. He's running it, and he just I don't know where. I assume it'll be on. If you Google it, something will come up. But it's on Twitter. It's @PerspectivePod, or one word, _
Brilliant.
@PerspectivePod _ and I assume it'll be on
YouTube.
All good podcast providers.
Yeah.
I'd say.
Yeah. That's something like that. But thank you very much for that. This has been absolutely brilliant. I feel like I've been in the pub on a Friday night. It's brilliant. Thank you.
No
Nice,
problem. Well, we'll have to do a pub one day, eh?
Oh, now you're talking. Now you're talking.
Props again to Liam McClare for the tunes on the podcast. You can follow him on Twitter @Liam McClare, and you'll find his YouTube channel details there too. Thanks for tuning in. You can get in touch with us on Twitter, where you can keep up with news on future episodes and whatnot, @Brian McClare Pod. Get your questions in for the mailbag too by tweeting us with the hashtag AskChocky. Once again, if you can't get enough of Brian, be sure to head over to the Set Pieces website, where you can find the revised and renewed Chocky's Diary, which are great to read, and you can see them each month on www.thesetpieces.com. And of course, we're available wherever you get your podcasts, so don't forget to click subscribe, and then you won't miss any future episodes. So until next time, see you soon.
Life with Brian, talking films or music. Life with Brian, talking TV and food. Life with Brian, talking trivia and exercise. Life with Brian is different every episode. Life with Brian, talking politics and football. Life with Brian.